Have I drowned all these worms? I've kept them in water overnight. I can see movement. So let's take a look and find out why I did this. All right, so here we are at a worm bin that I haven't recorded for a long time. This is the bin that I started with cardboard only bedding. And maybe it was the proximity to my seed starting operation, or maybe it's something to do with cardboard only bedding. But this was the bin that produced castings that had lots of fungus gnats. I had to move the castings outside, let the fungus gnats fly off. And now what I've got is I've got the worms that I retrieved from those castings. What I decided to do was basically drown any fungus gnats that may come along for the ride on the bodies of the worms or in the vermicompost. And so what I have is I have a tub with fluid with several hundred worms in it. I'm going to add the worms to this bin and then at the end of the video bring you back 6 days later to see how they're doing. This bedding is already pretty damp. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bunch of dry shred here, and then we will empty out those worms and take a look. There we go. I've added a lot of dry cardboard. And so I'm now going to just empty the tub of worms out onto that. There they are. They've been in my greenhouse, drowned in water for 24 hours. The worm looks pretty limp, but look at that. He is alive. Crawling along my finger there. I hope my drowning has stopped any further intrusions of fungus gnats, and I hope these nice worms that have had a bath for 24 hours are going to settle in, and I'm just going to mix them up with this shred, and let's take a look and see how damp that cardboard gets. I don't know whether I under or overestimated on the fluid. I can see standing water on the bottom of this bin. Now cardboard, as you know, takes a while to soak up moisture. So it was a guess how much cardboard to put in here compared to how much moisture. I think it's working out. So like I said, my goal was to get rid of the fungus gnats, and I've used this strategy to drown fungus gnats that infest houseplants. When I used to have a lot of houseplants and I would get flies breeding in the soil, fungus gnats, I guess. And so I use this strategy of drowning the houseplant in a couple inches of water. And I know worms don't drown, so the fungus gnats will. So let's hope that's the end of the fungus gnats for this bin. Okay, so this is a follow-up to check in on the worms that I put in a tub of water for 24 hours just to make sure they are doing okay. So this is Gus, my bin. All right, let's take the top covering off. I put the worms and all that new shredded cardboard on that side. So let's start there. Look for signs of life. You can see some of the shredded cardboard still looks non-inoculated, if you like. It still looks pretty blonde. Certainly not seeing any dead worms. I'll just zoom in a little. There is no smell, so for those of you that were worried, Oh, look at, here's a little bit of Eat My Shorts got in here. Yeah, so for those of you that were worried, worms were just fine and not as important, but significantly no sign of fungus gnats. I was worried these worms might have carried little fungus gnat larvae along on their bodies because their castings were so infected. All right, so let's just turn over this end. And there's worm activity here. And lots of castings. So Gus is shaping up to be a gutsy little bin. The worms survived a near drowning experience. Actually, I think they can last 3 days submerged in water, as long as the water is aerated. And you know, and I guess that's a hard one to call just by looking at water, but I think if you picked water that had been stagnant or had rotting material in it, the rotting material might have depleted the oxygen. But that wasn't the case with the water that I used. I actually used water straight from an aerated hose. So it was municipal water and lots of bubbles going in. Okay, you can see these castings are very wet on this side. So I think I'm going to do a total bin stir to get some of that drier shred mixed with, there we go. Just doing a total bin stir. I know. I was talking to somebody online about whether worms like being tumbled around. Probably not. As you know, red wigglers can kind of get a little stunned when you move them. And I'm sure doing this massive tumble disorients them, and they have to get their bearings. Probably have some receptors on their body that tells them which way is up. Most of us do, most animals do, and plants actually. All right, so there we go. I'm gonna feed in the middle, and let me just put a few dirty napkins down. Probably gonna stain my hands with this one. Those are peelings from beets. Look at the red. It'll be interesting to watch when we come back to Gus whether the worms seem brighter red eating that beet. There we go, a few more beet peels. I think a little bit more food is in order. There we go, I've got more food and another piece of carbon, which I think will be a good balance. So and that's already got eggshell grit mixed into it. So let me just put Gus all back together. Here we go. That's it for Gus today. Good check-in, and the worms are alive. All right, everyone. Bye for now.